Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for stepping into another PFE video series where culture and community meet. My name is Carolyn Plascencia, and May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I thought of none other than to have this important topic and conversation with master of all trades, jack of several, corporate development for the Movember Foundation, Rich Loesing. Rich, thank you so much for stepping into the PFE video series.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Always a pleasure. Now, for the viewers, can you walk us through and tell us a little bit about the Movember Foundation? It's simply not just growing your mustache in November. There's something much more. Tell us a little bit about how it got started and the mission.
Yeah, so Movember is the world's leading charity changing the face of men's health. Everything we do is to stop men dying too young, and we do that by focusing on the three key cause areas of prostate cancer, testicular cancer, and what we're here to talk about today, mental health and suicide prevention. And how it got started, it's actually a funny story. It started back in 2003 when a group of friends in Australia, mates as they call them, they just thought it'd be funny to bring back the mustache. So one month, they called the mustache the Mo. So they turned November into Movember. And a bunch of them just grew mustaches and had a big party at the end of the month. And then there was actually no charitable cause tied to it in the first year.
Really?
And then the next year, they said, you know what, let's do it again, but let's go kind of bigger and let's tie something that's bigger than ourselves.
Oh.
And that year they fundraised for prostate cancer and made the largest donation that the prostate cancer charity in Australia had ever received. Mm-hmm. So that's when the wheels got turning. They're like, there's something to this Movember idea. And then, fast forward, 17 years later now, and we're the world's largest men's health charity and have raised over $1 billion
Wow.
for our programs in those three key areas.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. I know I fell in love with Movember and the message. It's super meaningful and super personal for me. So I love going through that experience. And my husband's name Mo, so it's perfect for me too.
That's so you love Mo. You love all the Mo's.
I love all the Mo's. Hey Mo,
love it all.
So Movember really focuses through the male lens when it comes to mental health. What are some of the key things that you focus on when it comes to that?
Yeah, well, it's funny you mention that because that is a question that we get a lot. Is prostate cancer we get. Only men can have prostate cancer. Testicular cancer, same thing. But mental health, that's not uniquely male, right?
It's hard to talk about too.
It really is. It really is. And that's part of the reason that it exists. So here's a fact that a lot of people don't know is that of all the suicides that take place, about 75 to 80% of them are men.
Really?
So yeah, the vast majority of suicides are by men. And additionally, it's really tough, especially with kind of common ideas about masculinity and things like that, for men to talk about their feelings, to talk about the issues in their lives, even the good stuff. It's a lot of times, generally speaking, men want to keep those ideas and those thoughts and those emotions to themselves, and they don't share, especially when things are getting difficult, whether that's in one's personal life or professional life or spiritual life, whatever it may be. Instead of going for help or talking about those issues with someone else, a lot of times men will really take those and just shove them deep down until tragically it can become a very serious issue and it leads to anxiety and depression and, God forbid, suicide. But that's why Movember looks at mental health, particularly for men, because we think that if we get to men, if we create those atmospheres for men where they feel comfortable talking about their problems and their issues and creating those cultivating those networks and those spaces for men to go and feel comfortable doing these things, that we really think that we can help change the face of men's health by getting guys to open up and try to avoid those tragic endings that we see far too often. Every minute somewhere in the world, a man takes his own life.
Oh, wow.
And when I heard that, I was just heartbroken to know, in the time that we've been speaking today, several men have lost the battle with depression, and it's just heartbreaking. And that's why Movember exists, because we want to make sure we can get to men and create that resiliency, create those atmospheres of love and openness and vulnerability that may not exist for a lot of men in a lot of men's lives.
I love that you said that because, coming from a Hispanic culture myself, men could be a little bit machista, it's normally the terminology for us. And it's hard for a male to actually express their feelings, how they're feeling. So especially right now in this pandemic that we're dealing with, everyone had to look within themselves, including myself, but more specifically, it's been the topic of all topic for everyone. So as an expert, what would you recommend someone that's dealing with mental health issues right now or knows of someone? What are some of the key tips that you would recommend so that they could focus on to get a little bit better?
Well, there's several, right? The first would be open up. Find that person or those people that you can trust, and get to know them. Double down on your relationships, again, because isolation or feelings of isolation are what can either lead to depression or exacerbate it if you're already there. So that's the biggest thing, is human connection, whether that's a spouse, a family member, a close friend, a coworker, whatever it may be. Find those people that you can open up with and do that. And especially if it's someone you know. This is why Movember employs the ALEC model, ALEC, when it comes to getting men to open up and talk about, important things. It doesn't need to be necessarily bad things or depressing things, but just to open up about life in general and what's going on in their hearts and in their minds. And ALEC stands for ask, listen, encourage action, and check in. So ALEC, ask, listen, encourage action, and check in. And by doing that, we hope that gives men the opportunity to share what's going on in their life. So ask the question, what does that mean? How are things? What's going on in your life? How's the family? Things like that, opening those doors. Now, this is where men have a lot of problems often, is they'll say, things are good. And that's it. And a lot of times people are not equipped to move the conversation forward from there, because the common response might be, oh, okay, things are good here too. And then done. Conversation done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, that's why one of the programs we've recently released is called Movember Conversations. And it's an online digital tool that helps navigate conversations with men. So when you hit those roadblocks, when you hit those difficult parts in the conversations, you know how you can keep moving the conversation forward along. Because I've been involved with men's groups and Movember for well over a decade now. So I'm well equipped to handle those conversations and to open up myself and to get other men to kind of start inching towards that comfort. But I can tell you, 25-year-old Rich would have no idea. And again, kind of falling into some of that machismo culture, myself, especially in my younger days. I was that guy saying, oh, everything's okay, even though there's a hurricane going on in my brain of like, oh man, school sucks. I'm having trouble with my relationship. I'm not happy with the things I'm doing, but no, things are good. And again, silence. So asking the question is the first way to get there, and knowing how to further along the conversation if you do hit the roadblocks. But the second thing is listen. Because again, and as you know, just by me sitting here and talking, and I'm a recovering attorney, so I could probably do this all day long. It's really important to listen. So to just shut up. And this is where one thing I've learned tremendously over the last several years is when I'm having those serious conversations and want to get deeper with someone, the best thing that I can often do is just be quiet. Yeah. Just to listen and give them the opportunity to respond and to fill that silence, because it's human nature. We're generally uncomfortable with silence. So if you can win that battle with the person you're talking to and just stay quiet longer than they can, they'll fill that silence. They'll offer up those things. And again, it's just about cracking that door open so that they can walk through it, they can push through it. If you lead with your own vulnerability, people will usually follow suit and do the same, but they need to feel comfortable to do that. So listen. Then after that, it's encourage action. And what does that look like? And again, that can be difficult too, depending what the problem is or if there are any problems. But that could be, hey, give me a call next week and let's talk more about it. It could be something more serious depending on the situation. Maybe you should go see a doctor. Maybe you should go see a therapist, or maybe you should see a priest or your rabbi, or whatever it may be. But just let them know that it's okay to do those sorts of things. And again, that's where looking internally first is really helpful to say, when I had a similar experience, I shared that with my fiance, or I went and talked to my priest about it. It was really helpful to me. It's not even saying you should do this or here's what you need to do, because again, people can be resistant when it comes to advice about those sorts of things. But to say, here's what my experience was and here's what helped me. Then it's, no pressure. It's just, but that's a way to encourage action. And then the final one, and this is where men, and I will admit I'm notoriously bad at this as well, checking in. A lot of times we're like, oh, I had the conversation, it was helpful, we solved the world's problems, we're done. But we don't check in. We don't take that time and that energy to check in, because you can feel great one day, and then tomorrow you're right back in the pits. You know, you're feeling exhausted, you're feeling tired, you're feeling depressed. So having those recurring check-ins, whether it's every week or once a month, or at least a couple times a year, you know, to say, hey, I'm here for you. How are things? I just wanted to check in, because anybody can at least pretend to care one time, right? Whether it's with a stranger or your best friend, you can always, you know, just be there for someone. That's important. I'm not taking away anything of giving that love and that compassion whenever you can, as often as you can. But it really helps, especially if someone's struggling, to know, oh, wow, you know, we had this conversation 2-3 weeks ago, and they called me today to see how I was doing. And that check-in is so important, because it's another way to redeploy the Alec model. And it's just, you know, if you can do that, especially with the people that are closest to you, that you care about, let them know that you care, have those discussions, listen to them, and then check in regularly, because this has been a very tough, 14, 15 months that we've had with the pandemic. And a lot of people are feeling isolated and struggling and depressed, and it's led to substance abuse and things like that. It's just, unhealthy actions beget other unhealthy actions. So really just being there and being active and proactive in our own lives and in the lives of people we care about will go such a tremendously long way.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. I know when I was dealing with my signs of depression, I because I'm vocal about it, I want to express it because I didn't understand it. It didn't fit my energy. It didn't fit who I was. I wanted to really understand it. So I was very open and honest about it with people that I knew could guide me and could help me and could listen to how I was feeling. And I had great mentors that walked me through it, a lot of reading, a lot of prayer, a lot of looking within, talking to my husband, Mo, having a meaningful relationship with my friends. I mean, because you don't know who you are at that time. You don't see yourself being yourself at that time. So you really do need someone to reel you back in. So I love that Alec concept. I would love for you to repeat it again. So A is what?
Ask. So ask the question. It's saying, how are you doing? What's going on? How's work? How's the family? But starting the conversation, ask.
I love it. I love it. So tell me a little bit about the community and the impact Movember has created on a worldwide scale.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, this little movement that started in Australia back in 2003 has become a worldwide phenomenon. We've raised $1 billion globally and funded over 1,250 men's health projects all over the globe. So this is not an Australian thing. It's not an American thing. This is a global movement. We're so proud of the work we've been able to accomplish over the last nearly 20 years now. It's crazy. It's getting old. It's soon Movember will be able to drink legally. But yeah, so since then, over 5 million Mo Bros and Mo Sisters have taken part in this movement. And that's just the ones that have signed up on Movember.com and fundraised. That doesn't include the millions of people that have gone on to Movember.com and donated to help us fund and support these projects, or the millions and millions of other people that have just grown mustaches and had those conversations started and really opening those doors to get men more comfortable talking about their issues and taking more of an active role in their mental and physical health and well-being. So it's just been an absolutely tremendous amount of success that we've seen, not just from a mustache growing and fundraising perspective, but the amount of lives that we've touched, just personally, as employees, as friends, as Mo Bros and Mo Sisters, but also the communities and the conversations that have built around Movember, and it just continues to grow year after year. So we're just so grateful for all of our amazing supporters, both the Mo Bros and Mo Sisters, the donors, and the people that have just started those conversations that have helped save lives.
I couldn't agree with you more. I love being a part of it every single year. Now, for the individuals that want to become more involved as far as being mental health what's the word, advocacy or advocates, what would you recommend? What would be the steps? What would be the right process to go through to get involved, to get the message out, to be a little bit more open and vocal when it comes to really being there for other people? What would you best recommend?
Well, the first thing I would say is go to Movember.com, because that's a great place to start, because you'll find more information and resources on Movember.com than I could ever tell you in 5 hours of trying to talk to you. So just for a great place to start, that's the best way, is to go to Movember.com, look at the resources. If you want to become officially a Mo-Bro or a Mo-Sister and register, that's great too. But there's so much information there, including that's where you can find Movember Conversations, another digital tool that we have called Family Man for new fathers that are just trying to navigate the stress and the beauty of being a new father, because there's a lot of stress and difficulty that comes along with that beauty and that wonderful new excitement of being a father. So, you know, when you don't know what you're doing, it's great to have those kind of resources to help. So definitely start at Movember.com. But the second thing is to really take care of yourself first, men and women, right? Like we can't really give our best and our full to others until we're really taking care of ourselves. So make sure you're going to your annual physical, you know, once a year. Just go see the doctor, check in, make sure everything's going. If you're not feeling okay, physically, mentally, emotionally, go talk to a professional. That's what they're there for, right? Don't be embarrassed about it. You know, go take care of yourself. But assuming you have your own house in order, right? If things are going well, you're taking care of yourself, how can you really go above and beyond? Well, that's where I would say start those difficult conversations. Get involved with the people around you, especially those that you care most about, because everyone, this applies to everyone, but men particularly, you have no idea what's going on underneath the surface. I've known men and women that seems like everything's going great. They're happy, they have a great job and a family, and then you start peeling back the onion and you're like, oh wow, they're really struggling. They're really struggling. They don't feel fulfilled. They might be struggling anxiety or depression or other physical or mental ailments. And you don't know that unless you start those conversations and start digging into those relationships a little bit. And I want to go back to what you said about sharing your story with depression, because that's another really difficult thing for men, is to open up, especially when they think it shows signs of vulnerability or weakness or embarrassment. They might say, you know, if I share this, I'm going to feel embarrassed and people will laugh at me, or I don't know how they'll respond. But one thing I've learned, and the joy that was coming out of your mouth when you were talking about how just liberating it was to share those struggles with other people. And I think that's the little secret that needs to get out there, is that not only is it not a sign of weakness, not a sign of embarrassment, not a sign of pain, it's so empowering. And once you realize that vulnerability and that learning to be comfortable with that vulnerability and sharing your struggles, it's almost an addiction. And that's when not only do you want to continue doing that, but you want to help others do that as well. And in my own life, a very similar thing happened, right? I went to a men's retreat in 2013. I'd already been doing Movember, right? And it's been kind of seeping in, and it's cool. But for me at the time, it was still all about the mustache and the parties. And if I can raise some money for men's health, that's great too. But I went to a retreat in 2013. It was a men's retreat. It was 26 hours long, started Friday night, ended Saturday night. But it was based around men sharing their stories and getting up in front of a group of 80 guys and just saying, here's the best of me and here's the worst of me and here's who I am. And I was like, whoa. I was so emotionally exhausted by the end of the weekend, but so just empowered. And like, these are guys that I'm seeing around, you know, the community that I just put on these pedestals. I'm like, this guy's got everything. He's got his life together. He's got all this money. He's got this family. He's got these things. And I'm saying they don't have any weaknesses. They don't have any struggles. They don't have any issues. Like, they got it made. I want to be like that guy.
Yeah.
And then they get up there and say, I'm broken. And here's all the ways that I'm broken. And here are the things that I struggle with. And here are the things that I don't like about myself. And I'm gonna get emotional just talking about this. But to me, that didn't make me respect those men less. It made me respect them more. Because they were able to accomplish all these things and bring all this beauty into their life, despite all of their struggles that they've been going through. And it said, well, I'm like that too. I share in that struggle. I have that difficulty. And it was so beautiful that it became an addiction of sorts to me, where it's like, this is awesome. I want to be involved in this kind of community more often, and get guys to be more comfortable sharing these problems, these issues, these concerns, because again, it's the opposite. You're expecting to be laughed at or ridiculed or embarrassed, and then you realize I feel empowered. I feel so much stronger and more confident now that I can get out there and say, yeah, I'm not perfect. Here's what I struggle with. Here's what I don't like about myself. Here's what makes me sad or depressed or anxious. And then you're starting to shed this weight, so to release the shackles that you have on you, and you're no longer a slave to these things. You're now getting them off of your chest, getting them out of your heart and out of your mind. That's not to say that you're not still going to struggle with them, but that you're sharing those with other men. And 9 times out of 10, if you're in a group of 5 guys, one of them is going to have a similar experience to pretty much everything you're doing.
Yes.
And that's what's crazy too, is that, when we're at these retreats and there's 80 guys, 100 guys or whatever, the number of men that are there and just the large sections that say, I related to that. And well, you know what? I didn't struggle with that, but this other part of his story, I get where he's coming from, because I struggle with that too. Whether it's a father issue or sexuality or just whatever it may be, anything that guys are struggling with or have trouble with, or there's points of pain, there's always guys that say, wow, me too. Me too. I feel that way also, and I struggle with that also. And the more that we can kind of get this wildfire out into the community and to our society, I think the stronger we're going to be. Just be open, be vulnerable. So that's it. Again, that's a really long-winded answer, so I apologize. But
I love it.
I would say, yeah, open up with yourself first, and bring people into that world of vulnerability and openness and support. Let them know that you're there for them, and more often than not, they'll reciprocate. One final thing that I just found fascinating is a recent study showed that men were asked, if a friend needed help, would you be willing to give him help? Vast majority of men said yes. Of course I would help out my friend. Why would I not? Of course. But if only a fraction of men, when asked, would you be comfortable asking for help, said yes. So there's this disconnect here, because the men are there. The men are willing to help out a friend in need. But when it comes to themselves, they're hesitant to ask because they're embarrassed, or they're shy, or they don't think anybody would be willing to help them. So I think it's just connecting those dots to say, listen, you'd be willing, if your buddy came to you and said, I'm depressed, or I'm suicidal, or I'm struggling in my marriage or work, would you want to help your friend? And again, more often than not, say, hell yeah, I would.
Yeah.
So just to understand that, kind of have the wherewithal to take a step back and saying, so why wouldn't they help me if I need it? And just being brave enough and courageous enough to ask for that help, I think is so powerful. So whatever side of the coin you're on, ask for help if you need it. But if you don't, or even if you do, still try to be there for other people, because it goes a long way, and it creates a culture of openness and vulnerability that we're really striving to create here at Movember.
My friend, you just gave invaluable nuggets of wisdom. You said it best, and I love it that it's coming from you, because us females, we're good at call my girlfriend, girl, I didn't have a good day today, or girl, look at the husband, or girl, the kids, right? We're a little bit different. While males, it's harder for you to open up. So the simple fact that it's so vital and it's so important to be vulnerable to that experience, to open up and be okay, because we're all going through it. We all have challenges, right?
And honestly, I'm glad you mentioned that too, because women's health and the breast cancer movement was a huge inspiration for Movember, right? Because think of the breast cancer movement. I mean, every October, the pink ribbons are everywhere. They're everywhere. You see pink everywhere. They're in the NFL. They're everywhere. And that's because, generally speaking, women are better at taking care of themselves. They're better at being proactive. They're better at saying, hey, here's an issue that we as women deal with. Let's tackle it head on.
Yes.
And the founders of Movember kind of, after their first month of mustache craziness, said, where does this exist for men? What's out there that can similarly provide this atmosphere and this culture for men to be more active in their health and well-being? And there wasn't anything. And I think that's one of the explanations for Movember's immense popularity. And again, it was largely derived from being inspired by women in the women's health movement as it pertains to breast cancer. So again, I mean, I think, men and women have strengths. And I think it's important that we say, what are they doing really well that maybe we kind of suck at? And being open and vulnerable and talking about our feelings and our emotions is, I think, a great strength that, generally speaking, women have more than men. And I think that we can take a page out of that book and say, that's not weakness. That's actually a huge source of strength to do that.
And I'm so glad that we're talking about this conversation and this topic, because it's super important. I hope whoever listens to this and anything else gets something out of it, as far as, if you are feeling some kind of way, really open your heart up, and really find and seek that help that is really genuinely needed, so you could really continue that journey of going back into the light, of really going back to who you were, of really identifying what's really weighing you down, so you could go back to normal. So that's super, super important. Rich, thank you so much for being a servant leader in your community. Thank you so much for just providing nuggets of wisdom. I love our conversations. I love what you do. I love what Movember does. It's very, very true to my heart. And I'm so, so grateful for the friendship and the partnership that we've created over the last couple of years. So thank you so very much for stepping into the PFE video series.
Well, it's my pleasure, Carolyn. And I just want to return the thank you for all the work you do. I mean, helping spread the message of not just Movember and men's health, but all the causes that you guys champion. And you've been such an inspiration to us at Movember. But again, to everybody that you're just an absolute rock star. So we'll have to do this again sometime.
Absolutely. So where can they go? Where can our viewers go if they have any additional questions or needs when it comes to the Movember Foundation?
Everything starts and ends at Movember.com. That's where you can find all the great resources. You can donate if you'd like. But really, we love having new Mobros and Mo sisters. So and it doesn't need to be Movember. If you want to sign up today and do a little fundraiser or move for Movember, that's been such a successful activity as people stay fit and active to help raise funds and awareness for men's health.
I love it.
Everything can be found on Movember.com. You can follow us on social media. We just love interacting with the community and bringing in as many people as we can to help change the face of men's health.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. Viewers, did you love the information that was provided in this topic today? If so, comment below. Thank you so much for stepping into another PFE video series. Thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye.